November 22nd, about 10 a.m. I'm out in the hoop house. Last night was the coldest night we've had so far this fall. The forecast was for minus 13, but we never get what they forecast here on the coast. It's usually warmer. Regular heat wave. It went down to minus 6, according to my digital thermometer up at the house, and I just checked the mini max thermometer here in the hoop house, and it was minus 6 in here last night too. There's frost on the soil in these raised beds, and how well that's showing up. And the few lettuce plants that I have left here uncovered have, I think, definitely seen their last day. I'll give you a little look under the row cover. I already took a peek, and cabbages look pretty well, the leaves anyway, look pretty well frozen now. When the sun gets up further later this afternoon, it'll warm up in here a bit, and I'll determine whether or not I have to pick my cabbages, try to salvage what's left of them anyway, cook them for a meal quickly, I guess, if they did freeze last night. Anyway, the hoop house is like a ice dome this morning. All the condensation, which always seems to be on the plastic in here, is ice from one side to the other. See that or not? Yes, I think so. Have a little look under the row cover. And that's the cabbages exposed a little bit here. I won't take the row cover off completely until it warms up in here, but those leaves, and how it's showing up on the video, but those leaves certainly look frozen to me, and actually where there was moisture or droplets of water, there's now ice on them. So I'll see what they look like later this afternoon, but I suspect that that's the end of growth in the hoop house for this season. Just outside the hoop house on this cold, frosty November morning, the birds haven't eaten the berries off of this plant yet. It always looks to me like it has little Christmas lights hanging on it until very shortly now. So I don't know what birds it is, but some bird arrives and eats them all. This is Euonymus alata, the burning bush. I think one of my earlier videos I showed it with the red foliage on it. I love things with fall berries on them for the wildlife around here. I'll give you a look at a couple of other things here now before I close off for the morning. I have 3 varieties of barberry, and they've really put out berries this year. They make beautiful Christmas decorations, I guess, but they are so spiny. They're covered with inch-long thorns. Another barberry. This one has still got some foliage. The leaves are pretty much dead, but they haven't blown off of it yet. A much larger barberry bush. This one's over 5 feet tall and still growing, I guess. It's quite a young bush, but I only had these for 5 or 6 years, all 3 of them. But this is also putting on a great display of berries. This is American Bittersweet, a vine. It requires male and female plants. It doesn't self-pollinate, so I have both plants growing on a trellis here. And I don't know, most gardeners worry about the thing because it's so invasive, I guess. I don't find it invasive. It certainly does pop up in the bed here, but if it pops up someplace where I don't want it, I just cut it off. And I think if I weren't mowing the lawn around it, it would certainly be coming up in the lawn. But I think it's so beautiful when it blooms in the fall, or has its berries in the fall, rather. The blossoms don't amount to anything in the summertime, hardly noticeable. But it's beautiful when it's covered with all this fruit, and eventually the birds will eat it as well. I think they wait for it to freeze a few times, must sweeten it up or something. And this is my heirloom apple tree called Pumpkin Sweet. Hundreds of apples still left on it, and I've harvested a lot. I've dehydrated them. I've made pies and all that sort of thing, and I have some in a box in the basement because they're a great storage apple. But they're freezing now. Soon they'll turn brown, but they're great winter food for birds on milder days. They don't fall off the tree. They'll turn into brown, rotten sacks, basically, but on mild days, certain birds will come and rip them open and eat the seeds from inside. Come spring, there's still some of these hanging on the tree. It's a Very strange apple tree. They don't fall off for some reason. I guess I showed this you previously. This is my rather rustic bird table, and the birds are really enjoying it. And I have set up my time-lapse camera, taking 10-second video clips for 2 hours each day, one every 10 minutes, I think, for a few days. And if it works out, I'll post a video clip of the time-lapse birds feeding at the feeder. And last but not least, one of my favorite native wild plants. I have this growing in the forest on my property. I have 8.5 acres, most of which is just natural forest. And many years ago, I dug this little one up and put it in my roadside wild garden here. It's a native deciduous holly. It actually is classified in the ilex, the holly family, and the common name for it is winterberry. It requires, once again, male and female plants in order to produce the berry. It doesn't self-pollinate like all of the hollies, but it's covered with these lovely red berries. And eventually the birds do eat them, but sometimes there are some of these left in the spring. They're not one of the more popular foods, at least for the birds that I have in this area. Anyway, that finishes my tour of the wildlife food that's available around here. I'll give you a little look now at the hoop later this afternoon, and then I'll close this off. Well, it's now about 3:15 in the afternoon here. The daytime high temperature has already been reached, and that was 2 degrees outside. I just checked the mini-max thermometer in here in the hoop house, and it went to 4.5 degrees in here, so no heat wave, that's for sure. But the cabbages that were looking pretty bad this morning, frozen, whatever, seem to have perked up, so I'm going to take a risk and leave them alone here. I have to keep reminding myself that this is an experiment. I'm trying to see how late I can get these things to survive in the hoop house. Picking them won't prove anything, I guess, but I just hate to see things go to waste. I didn't uncover the rest of the bed. Everything that I looked under it looks pretty good. The kale looks excellent, and the Brussels sprouts don't appear to have been damaged. So I'm going to put the row cover back over and leave this at least for a few more days. The forecast for the next few days, not warm weather, but not as cold as it was last night. It's supposed to moderate again a bit. Tomorrow we're in for a mixture tomorrow afternoon of snow and rain. Snow not too far inland from here, and I think we're supposed to get a little bit of snow mixed in and then some fairly heavy rain. Anyway, time will tell, and the hoop house is still surviving. Well, there's things covered back up again, but just before I close down here, I thought I would mention why it isn't getting very warm in here, even though this has been a sunny day. We're still headed towards the shortest day, which would be sometime around the 20th, 21st of December. And at this time in the year, the sun is very low on the horizon here, and really doesn't get much above the trees that surround this garden. So the amount of, even though it's a bright sunny day, the amount of direct sunlight on the hoop house this time of year is pretty minimal. Once we get to the shortest day rather, and the days start lengthening, I think it'll warm up in here, at least marginally, over the winter. Anyway, that's an explanation of why it only went up a few degrees above the outside temperature today. Thank you for watching.